Joining us tonight, former South Carolina governor and former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley. Ambassador, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much. Great to be with you.
Well, I want to start with Russia, what you see on the border there, and how you think this president, this administration is handling this moment, obviously with the German chancellor today.
Well, it's an important day. I mean, I think, look, none of this would be happening if Afghanistan wouldn't have been the crisis that it was. But what you're seeing is Russia and all the dictators are seeing an opportunity that this is the weakest president that America's ever had. And so if they were ever going to invade Ukraine, this is the time to do it. I think what Russia's really trying to do is get us to not allow Ukraine into NATO. And we have to remember that if you start to give in to Russia's threats, there'll be just another one behind it. But the one thing that makes the Ukraine-Russia issue so important is that China's watching this, because how this plays out will dictate whether China thinks they can go ahead with Taiwan. So all of these things string together. Iran is watching, and Biden's falling all over himself to get into the Iran deal. North Korea is testing ballistic missiles. All of this means that America needs to show strength and needs to show deterrence when it comes to any threats that are coming our way or towards our allies.
Your successor as ambassador to the United Nations was on over the weekend speaking about that Russia-China connection and what she thinks it means. Take a listen.
Of course, he's watching it. We are committed to protecting the security and supporting the security of the people of Taiwan. So if China is making efforts toward Taiwan because of what they see happening in Ukraine, these are two different types of situations.
The ambassador saying it's apples and oranges. You disagree?
It's not two different types of situations. I saw China and Russia becoming closer and closer when I was UN ambassador. I think you have to realize that this is China watching what Russia's doing. You haven't seen China condemn Russia. You haven't seen China call Russia and tell them not to do anything. If anything, they tried to stop the meeting in the Security Council and took the side of Russia. So this is something that if you allow this to happen with Russia, China is next. And we have to wake up. We've got to realize what's happening. I mean, we are dependent on Russian oil. Biden needs to be calling out Chancellor Scholz and saying, look, you can't have a NATO that's supposed to be, you know, holding itself against Russia when you're totally dependent on natural gas. You can't have Chinese airplanes flying over Taiwan, but at the same time have Biden sending millions of home tests to Americans when you flip it over and it's made in China, saying we all need to wear N95 masks and they're made in China. We've got to wake up and realize we are contributing to the problem. Words don't mean anything. It's the actions that have to happen.
Well, speaking of actions, China's actions against the Uyghurs inside their own country, and then they have this moment and the lighting of the torch with a symbolic Uyghur and a Chinese athlete together. You reacted to that on Twitter.
You know, I mean, that athlete that was lighting the torch, that's guilt. That's Chinese guilt. They put that athlete front and center to try and say, if we show you something different, then you will forget the images of all of those Uyghurs on their knees, blindfolded, that are sexually abused, tortured, and that we are seeing genocide right in front of our very eyes. This is them trying to fool everyone. We're not stupid. You can tell by the fact that Americans are not watching the Olympics. The fact that sponsors are going to continue to think they can make money, and they can't. They're torturing people in front of our face. We promise never again. We have to stand by that.